My first one, when I bought, I lost everything. Tenant got murdered. We had a national water crisis, so a lot went on there. But it taught me a lot of valuable lessons. I probably lost my initial investment of maybe 15 or 20,000. But again, I kind of internalized that, and it helped me to understand what I didn't understand, and seek mentorship and seek people that had done things and had a lot more experience than me.
You're listening to the Real FI Podcast, where we discuss time-tested tricks, techniques, and strategies for pursuing financial independence today, so that we can enjoy a better tomorrow. A better tomorrow. Financial independence isn't about getting rich quick. It's about cultivating a foundation to grow financially, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Let's figure out how to kick the 9 to 5. Here are your hosts, Patrick and James.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Real FI Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick McGrath, and today we've got a great guest. I'm sitting here speaking with Brad. Brad, how's it going?
Pat, I appreciate you having me on. I'm doing great, and it's always a privilege.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, Brad, the way we always like to get started here on the podcast is kind of give us a little bit of your background, where you got started, where you're currently living, let the people kind of know who you are and what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah, well, my story doesn't start great. It's not a success story. But when I was 20, I just decided that I wanted to, I thought it was, I saw the majority of wealthy people owned real estate. I kind of grasped enough of that concept. But obviously being young, I didn't really fully understand what that meant. So I always looked at, dollar value as my entry, like cheap is good, right? Like how can I get the cheapest and whatever, and so but it taught me a lot of lessons. So long story short on that place, so yeah, after that experience, I started to read a lot. I took up mentorships. I went and started to do sort of like internships with people, basically for free or cheap. And those sort of internships, led to people, putting a little bit of trust in me, seeing that I was a hard worker and willing to do whatever it took. For instance, I went and basically, for $10 an hour, the person that I knew that owned the most real estate, I said, I'll do anything and everything you want. And that entailed me gutting his properties. So I would do that for, like I said, I think it was probably $8, $9, $10 an hour, nothing, but I just wanted to provide value. And I never really sought for that to become something. But now fast forward, a couple years after that, he invited me to be a partner on a flip, which really springboarded me to become a true flipper and be, and master the craft. I bought a large majority of his portfolio when he retired. I bought his commercial buildings. He holds some notes for that. I bought his self-storage, so anyway, so it's sort of, I never envisioned it to be that, but just sort of taking that experience of failing and realizing that it wasn't the thing I was doing, real estate, that was the failure, is me not understanding and grasping real estate at its fullest. So I did what anyone that really does anything well, you go get a mentor that really understands and fully understands it and provide them value. Because I see a lot of people, say, hey, how can I get a mentor? What can I do a mentor? And mentorship looks a lot more like you just going and, servicing someone's need, like going and working your tail off for somebody or whatever that looks like, rather than just showing up and saying, hey, will you be my mentor?
Exactly, man. Well, you've got a whole lot to unpack there. I mean, from, starting out, failing, losing some money, and then going and finding the biggest person that you knew that was doing real estate and saying, hey, I'll do anything. Like, you just wanted to be around that to kind of get some experience, make a little bit of money, and kind of learn from them, and then ended up partnering with them and buying a bunch of portfolio. I mean, there's a whole lot there to unpack. And sure. I'd really like to kind of rewind a little bit. Sure. And really see, so where's all this taking place? Where do you live? Where are you investing currently? So, break that down for us real quick.
Yeah, we're about like an hour outside of Detroit. So kind of like the Metro Detroit, Flint area is my market in Michigan.
Okay.
And so just like anywhere in the country, I mean, it's a strong market, but there, the Midwest is a great space, I think, to invest. I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think, especially in Michigan, there's been a lot of growth, in a number, Detroit's made a big comeback, and whatnot. And so, but that's where I invest. That's where our entire portfolio is kind of in that area.
Great. So let's break down that first deal. Can you
Sure.
tell us a little bit about that? Like, so you said you realized that, anyone that was wealthy or had financial independence did real estate, so that made you want to go out and do it. So let's break this first deal down for people and learn from your unfortunate mistake here. So break that down for us. What was it? What went wrong? And then what did you learn from it?
Sure. It seems like an eternity ago. So, I don't remember all the details, but, basically, I saw something that was super cheap. I guess I just didn't fully understand markets and areas and things of that nature. And so, I basically I traded a truck for it. Actually, I don't think I actually put any money down. He owed so much in back taxes and water bills, so I paid that, I guess. But I think I literally just paid an old truck for it, something like that. And then the place had been completely ransacked, so all the plumbing had been taken out. They took out all the wire for electrical wire for copper, all those sorts of things. So I had to rewire it, run new copper, run new plumbing, et cetera, and then do a little bit of a rehab. So that's where about I would guess probably about 20 grand is what I ended up having into it,
Okay.
give or take. And so yeah, and then, like I said, my tenant got murdered. That was a interesting scenario to begin with, right? And a lot to unpack, but it took a long time with the police department, and they ended up actually saying that it was suicide. And the family, they hired their own independent and, whatever. But so it took a long time. And then during that process, it got broken into again, and they took everything out, once again, plumbing and all that. So it wasn't even worth it to try to restore it at that stage. It was like, I'm not going to do that again. So that's why I just turned the keys back over to the land bank and just decided to take it as a lesson.
Walked away.
Sure.
Walked away. So most people, I would venture to say, after that first trying experience, not only going with a complete rehab, but also having a major tenant issue, having to deal with the police and everything, and then having the property ransacked again and having to go through the whole thing, they would be like, you know what, this real estate thing isn't for me. Like,
Sure.
But you kind of got all the worst aspects of it out of the way on the first one,
Yeah.
and just decided, all right, I'm going to keep going. So, all right. So all this happens. You give the keys back. How long after that first deal did you start getting into real estate? Did you start becoming a real estate agent?
Sure. It took me at least a year to get my next deal. I can't remember exactly how long between, but it was definitely at least a year. And so I kind of regrouped, I guess. Of course I had to regroup because I lost all my money. So now I had to, save up for another down payment. And so I did that, and I did a live-in flip after that. It was a good experience. That live-in flip took me like 13 months close to close, something like that. Or maybe it was 11 months. I think it was close. It was over a year. So, about a 13 months or so. I ended up doing, fairly well. I made maybe something like 30 grand, nothing to write home about, but it was worth my time, and it taught me a lot. And I tried to do too much, so it taught me that I needed to, hire out more things and things of that nature. But it was a really good experience, and so then after I did that, the year before, I had done some work for that particular individual that I talked about. And again,
Okay.
I like to stress, this guy is not some like big time real estate mogul. He's just kind of a run of the mill guy, right? Like he owned a few, like back when I knew him, he probably owned like 8 or 9 places. But at that time, that was the only person I knew that owned more than just a regular house. So I had worked for him. And then after I did this flip, I said, hey, can I just take you to lunch? Because, I do that a lot. Like I enjoy taking people to lunch and just picking their brains. And I just said, hey man, like I got this amount of money and I can't remember how much it was, but it's probably like, got 30 back from materials and 30 gains. So I probably had something like 60 grand. And I'm like, what would you do with it? And I don't even know what he said at that meeting, but a day later he called me back and he's like, hey, you want to partner on the deal? So like he had trusted me from my time of, busting my tail for, $8, $9, $10 an hour. And so, we did that together. And the thing about, working with someone like that is, and it changed my entire trajectory, honestly, not just making a couple bucks, but we went into this house. It was a 2-bed, 1-bath. And he was really, he did everything himself. And so we reconfigured the entire layout and made it a 3-bed, 2-bath. And honestly, like that just blew my mind. I had no idea anyone could do that. I didn't know it was possible. I'm not sure why, but like it never occurred to me that you could come in and like add that much value and add, and we vaulted the ceilings, all these sorts of things, right? But from there on, every single deal I've done some level of value add, and that's my play. That's why I love single family. Because it's so versatile, especially in this market. People can, you can buy, you can sell, and right now you really sell anything, right? But
pretty much,
but
yeah.
we do a little bit of multifamily, but I really like single family because I can do so much. I can value add with it, and that's kind of our niche market right now.
Man, that's great. So basically, that year in between your first deal going belly up and you doing your live-in flip, you were working for this gentleman who's got 8 or 9 properties, which, I think for anyone listening out there who has 0 properties or 1 property, someone that has 8 or 9 properties is kind of like, that's the mogul,
Sure.
that you're looking for. So this guy gives you some time, and then you do this.
I add that just to say that, like, most people, like, I feel like there's this possession or this perception that like your mentor has to be somebody that's got 100 million and whatever, like the you should find a mentor that's Robert Kiyosaki or whatever. And I found
Bradley or Grant Cardone or something like that.
Yeah, like I found it to be the opposite. Like the people that are the actual doers, you go find a way to service something that they're doing. Go tell them that. Like if somebody came to me tomorrow and said, "Hey, I'll go clean out your properties for X amount of dollars," I would give, like that's a huge need for me, right? I hire companies to do that. Somebody wanted to do that, I would definitely go over there and show them everything about, hey, if you could go service that need for me. So I tell people, like, if you're going to go find a mentor, go find a way. And real estate's easy, right? Everyone needs somebody to go do a little bit of legwork for them,
Yep.
Go throw some paint on a rental property, go gut out a property or whatever it is, things that don't take like a high level of skill set, just a little bit of elbow grease or whatever. Like there are ways to go. And I guess what I'm saying is you don't have to go find a person that's got millions of dollars in real estate. You just got to find somebody that's done enough real estate to be able to help you get to the next level.
Exactly. I think that is a huge takeaway, early on in this podcast, is you really don't, like you said, need to find somebody. You just need to find somebody that's out there doing it or has been doing it for a long enough time, because you have zero or little knowledge. And if you are providing value to someone, and the value that you're looking in return is a couple bucks, but some knowledge on how to go out and get your own property or partner up on a deal, that can take you 2 or 3 rungs up
100%.
over, those 20, 40, $100,000 lessons that
100%.
all of us have at some point. So
and by the way, I did that, in my spare time, like after work and on the weekends, I would work for him for $10 an hour. I had another job, but like, so in probably similar situations that people are right now, like if you want to find a mentor, don't go pay somebody in my, and I guess there's cases of me and otherwise, but like, I would never go pay somebody $3,000 to be my mentor in a different market. I would go and go work, go tell somebody, I'll just go gut your place out if you show me how you did your last flip or whatever it is. Or like, hey, show me how to do it. I'll come work for free or whatever that looks like. That to me is the real way you find somebody that's you add a lot of value and they're going to give you thousands of dollars in value just being being around them, seeing the process. I think, to me, that's the real way to see what the next level is.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's huge. That's huge. So, all right. So you got this flip, boom, down. You've got a partnership going on now. Single families, value add. I couldn't agree more. Easy to sell, easy to rent. They're everywhere. Exit strategy galore. So, what's your portfolio look like today?
Yeah, so it's a mix of multifamily and single family. So after I flipped for a little bit when I was younger, I got into house hacking. So we bought a 3-unit. I use with my value add. I love value add. So I stumbled across the 203K loan, which is kind of the construction loan side of FHA for people that aren't familiar. But that program will actually lend you the money to do the rehab. So what I did is I took a 3-unit. It was complete gut, but I walked into it with the same vision that previous person that taught me of value add, and I saw this 12 by 12 room of storage and a 1-car garage, and I'm like, that's my unit. So I added the 4th unit. You cash flowed like crazy while I lived there. But I just kind of took that same value add concept. We bought some more, we bought a 3-unit and a 2-unit. And then the rest of our portfolio is single family. Every one of them, every one of them's a burr. So like yesterday, I just bought one with 4 feet of water in the basement and bowing walls and all that. So it's a little bit of a game to us to try to find the we take on some pretty serious projects. One of our last ones, we're just wrapping up. They had meth fires in the attic, and it just we pretty much take all the condemned properties now, and so we kind of enjoy doing that. I have a full-time construction crew of 8 people, so they service our flips, our burrs, and all of that. So,
man, that's great. I mean, you're taking other people's problems or things that people are not even looking at and turning away from, and creating a huge opportunity and building your entire business around that model. Which is huge because there's a niche out there for everyone. There's a niche that people can dive down on for everyone. And yours is,
And again, like that, this isn't for a lot of people, right? They don't have the time. They don't, whatever. But I guess the biggest thing, probably take away from my story is, I guess the cliche of failing forward, but there's a power in starting, and I get asked quite a bit, like, what should I do with the state of the market? I tell people when I had that first flip, it was 2015. I'm not a big political guy, but that was a big political year. Like that's kind of kicked off all the tensions we have in the world now. And I'll never forget the big real estate guys at the time, like Kiyosaki specifically, was like, was shouting from the rooftops that we're going to have a crash. It's going to be worse than 2008. And I'll never forget during that flip, like I was losing sleep. Like I was taking it to heart, like, man, the economy is going to crash. Real estate's going to crash, and I get the lesson of that I've taken away is that, and even now, you got people, at some point we're going to have tough times. We have corrections. But man, like, I talk to my team and everything, and I'm like, to me, it doesn't matter. We'll adapt. Like whatever the economy gives me, whatever the real estate market gives me, we're going to adapt. We're going to continue to fail forward. We're going to continue to push forward. And I guess for somebody out there that is, just looking to start, is it a good time? Real estate's so high. There's a power in starting. There's just such a power in starting. Like I remember reading books, but then when I actually did something and you read like I did a burr and then I read about the burr and it just hit a whole different way. You see it through the lens of what you just did. You take away things that you never would have taken away with before, and you expand on that knowledge. And you'll never be able to you could read 1,000, like in my opinion, you could read 1,000 books and you won't be able to replicate that first experience of doing it. And if you were just to read one book and do, would be far superior than reading all the real estate books out there, in my opinion. And so, yeah, there's just, there's an importance of numbers, but man, especially if you're doing something like a house hack or something like that, that's, that house hacking success, I don't think we mentioned, but if anyone is interested in that, like we have some resources and stuff, but I think it's an amazing first step because it gives you a little bit of a hedge. No matter what's happening in the world, the worst case, if you have a house hack, is that you have to take out a mortgage like everyone else. Like that's the worst case. And so if somebody was trying to, to fail forward, I would tell them, get into a house hack now. Like even if the prices are, even if they were the highest they were. Right now, we are at, in my market, we're closing in on 150%. So housing prices that hit in 2000, the peak in 2007, like we're 150% above that now in my market, right?
That's
so like
wild.
Things come back. It's only been 12 years, right? So just fail forward, I guess would be my
man. That's so huge, and I really couldn't agree with you more on that. Like, people out there get analysis paralysis, have to buy the best deal, and what's your cash on cash return, and your IRR, and all these numbers floating around. And at the end of the day, like you said, you really just need to go out there and buy a property. If you hit a single, like you said, if you break even, with a house hack alone, like you can at least live rent free or live almost rent free and have one property. And that is going to change your life. You're going to see all those things that you've been reading about. Like you said, you're going to be dealing with tenants, and all of that's going to be right there. And you're really going to get a grasp of it. And like you said, if you're thinking about real estate as a long-term play towards your financial goals, these markets are cyclical. They go up and down, and over a long period of time, history doesn't always repeat itself, but the real estate market has shown that you're going to have appreciation. So, and like you said, 2008, 2010, 2014, 2015, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, everybody's projecting that a crash is coming, a crash is coming, a crash is coming. But right now, housing inventory is its lowest in like 30 years. So, where's this crash coming from?
It blows me away when I go and look at, property values and all that in 2015 when I was losing sleep. Kiyosaki and a lot of those guys that I still respect. Again, I don't have any problem with, people like Kiyosaki warning of crashes. I know from time to time I hear him talk a little bit about it too, but like, it just blows me away. Like in a lot of areas that I directly buy and sell in right now, home values have almost tripled, since that time. And it's crazy. So
I think about how many deals I passed on for $5,000 back in 2016, 2017, 2018. I'm like, nope, I got to be at 165. And they're like, well, 170 best offer. I'm like, nah, I'm no way. And today that same place is worth $320,000.
Sure.
So like you said, just get out there, just start. There's enough resources out there to tell you if you're getting an okay deal.
Real estate, the thing about real estate is it's very forgiving in some, there are definite issues that you can address, but the great thing about real estate and the tax code is that it's very forgiving in that sense that, the expenses that we occur on the property, we can write off against it. Yeah, it won't be a direct contribution back to our wallet, but it is very forgiving in that sense. It's also forgiving in the sense that if you hold it long enough, even if you bought it at the top, even if you bought property I know people that bought properties in 2005, 2006, 2007, and they still own them and they're doing very, very well on those properties because they just held up through the crash. Real estate and so for my wife and I, we had a big shift, probably 3 or 4 years ago, specifically with our multifamily. I was so tired of dealing with, the one-on-one tenant stuff. And we sat down, and that side of the business, we decided that we were going to treat it as long-term wealth generators. We want to be in real estate for 30 or 40 or 50 years. Like I'm a thoroughbred. I love real estate. I can't imagine myself not having some level of, whether it's developing or whether it's, just buying and selling like I do, or the brokerage or whatever. But so we hand it all off to property management, because we're like, the cash flow isn't what we're looking for now. We're looking for long-term wealth, right? And it's forgiving. And I think people forget that when you're, and I can appreciate that when you're there, it's your kind of life savings. But man, like real estate is forgiving, if you hold it long enough.
Yeah. And my wife and I are kind of right there at that point now, where it was cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. We're doing everything ourselves. We're painting, we're doing all the renovations, we're doing all the tenant placements, we're doing all that stuff. And now in 3 years, we've been able to get to a point where now we're like, hey, let's look at property management. Let's pass that one part off and just focus on the business now. Because like you said, we're looking at that long term. We're trying to project our lives out and envision our life in the next 5 years, 15, 30 years. And that's the beautiful part about real estate. We were just having a conversation on Sunday about possibly moving to another state. And she was like, well, we can sell the house. And I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to sell any one of our houses, even if it's like our personal house. Like we'll rent it out. We'll put it on Airbnb. We'll do something, but I don't think I ever want to sell. I don't think I ever really want to sell unless that was the goal the whole time, unless that was the goal, to buy it and sell it. So that's great. All right. So you've got a mix of single families. You've got a mix of small multifamilies. You said you had a commercial building in there. So
so we got office space, we have manufacturing, and we have outdoor storage.
So, okay. So I really kind of want to hear about this portfolio deal that you were able to put together. So you said that's from the same guy that you were doing the mentoring with?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was never really strategized. Long story short, he got a divorce, so that changes things. And so yeah, he sold me his duplex. He sold me a single family. And, again, this guy he wasn't some mogul, like he had, probably 8 or 9 properties. His wife got half of them. He got half of them. And I took the majority of his half. I think he sold one of them just outright. But so that happened to be the commercial stuff. And he was willing to hold a note on that particular, set of things. And so yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a relationship business. And, I certainly never intended to do that. I actually listed the commercial stuff beforehand because I really had no intention of buying it, never really considered it. And then I had it listed, and I don't really know what changed in me. But I just kind of thought of it one day when some people I think a construction company. Yeah. I showed it to a construction company, and they had all these ideas, and I'm like, why the hell don't I just buy it? So I approached him like, hey man, let me just buy it. And you hold the note and you'll make, X amount of dollars. This will be your retirement. And he bought it. So
nice, man. All right. I really like that. I really like that a lot. So, all right. We got so you said you have storage too?
Outdoor storage. So it's 1.5 acres. So we, it's tedious. I don't devote enough time to have individual and market it and things like that. My assistant takes care of all that, but we rent it to 2 large. So we have a tree company, takes up 1/4 of it. Then we have electrical company, takes up 1/4 of it. And then the other half we rent individually to, RVs and boats and cars and things of that nature. So, it is pretty, to have it consistently rented, it takes quite a bit of dedication. You got to have somebody market it, get onboarding, retention. It can be, some people will only need it for 3 to 6 months for their boat season, right? Some people will only need it for the winter for the RV stuff, right? So it can be, there's a high level of turnover and things like that. So we just found it easier because I don't have the time to be able to devote, a ton to like marketing, and it honestly, it's not, so we just rent a quarter and a quarter. It works out really well. It pays pretty good. It pays very good, compared to, and so, pretty good cash flow, good people. I get a lot of business from it, just building those relationships with those people. We charge less than most everyone else. So people appreciate that. And it's a great way for me to meet people. And the majority of the people that store there, have value in some way, to what we do here. So, I've found it to be an incredible way to meet people, service a need at a price point that makes me money, but also helps me keep clients, and helps me. I've made a lot of business outside of just a few bucks a month self-storage.
So it sounds like you are basically talking about, you said an acre and a half.
Yep.
An acre and a half with a fence around it.
Fence around it, and pavement. Yeah.
And pavement.
Yep.
So just an acre and a half
outdoor
lot,
storage.
basic outdoor storage, and 3/4 of an acre is between two people, and the rest is RVs and boats and whatnot. I mean, that's great. I mean, there's so many different ways out there for people to make money with real estate if they don't want to, flip houses or deal with, tenants and toilets and all that other stuff. You're going to have tenants, but most people are just parking their RV or their boat there.
It's a beautiful thing. I mean, they don't complain, they generally pay. I mean, obviously you're going to take, if they don't pay, you'll take whatever it is they got up there. And, but yeah, it's an easy way to make some pretty good cash flow. Like I said, we could probably maximize that a little bit more. But for me, like it works out really well. It pays us very good. Pays us, better than probably if I were to buy a, 10 unit or something like that, as far as, monthly cash flow. And, and we have people that are dedicated to it. We don't have to, the half that's dedicated to 2 people, we don't have to get 50 individuals into those people. We just deal with 2. And so, and it's a little bit of a discount, but not enough to really, make me want to sit there and say, let's invest the amount of marketing dollars it's going to take to really fill this up. So
that's great. That's beautiful. I love it. I mean, I'm looking for alternative ways to expand, our real estate business. I've looked into self-storage. James and I have actually looked into possibly buying, an acre or 2 to do RV and boat specific, self-storage like that. So, I mean, it's a great location.
Fantastic. The boat launch to the big lake is just literally, less than a mile from the building here. And of course those lake properties are high dollar points. So for us in our business as a real estate brokerage, it brings in a lot of, higher end clientele and things like that. So like I said, it's been a great opportunity for us. And
All right. So I love it. All right. So we've got an idea of, kind of the rental properties, the commercial space, the self-storage. So how long from the, first flip that just crashed and burned to where you are today did it take to build this, kind of mini empire you have today?
A little over 8 years. It was probably early 2014. I think when it was winter, I think it was, like January, probably 2014, I bought that first one. And so yeah, it's been slow and steady. I mean, I've always taken the approach to everything I do of, building a solid foundation. I come from a Christian background, and not that really matters, but it was always instilled from a young age that you build things on rocks. You build things on a rock foundation and not in the sand, right? That's a parable. And so I've always taken that metaphor and applied it to everything that we did, right? So I was always very slow and methodical. It took me 13 months to do that first flip. And then, when I got in the multifamily space, it was slow and methodical and doing it right and making sure that, the cash flow numbers met and all that sort of things. But I always sort of knew that all it took was a little bit of gasoline on the fire. Right. And I always, one thing that I knew, I saw a long time ago was that, like, I think, for the last 50 years, the greatest commodity was access to money. And I think probably about, 3, 4, 5 years ago, that sort of switched. And I saw it pre-COVID that, like, this switch was taking place, and the greatest commodity in the next 50 years was going to be access to labor. And so, I kind of always knew that. And the reason that I started a construction company is not that I want to, we don't do any work for really anyone else, maybe some, clients or whatever. But I always get people asking, I'm like, dude, there's no way. But access to money is the easy point. It might not feel like it right now from where people are talking about. It certainly didn't feel like it to me now, but there's so much money out there. There's just so much money out there. And if you can build that foundation slowly, it's going to take time. It's going to feel like it's taking too long. It's going to feel like everyone else on Instagram it's going so fast. Like, I know it felt that way for me. Like, oh my goodness, these people are doing all this. Don't let it bother you. Just start. If you're not starting, start. To me, like you said, like I tell people, if you can literally just hit a base hit, get an inspection, make sure the foundation is good, get a sewer scope, make sure nothing's wrong with sewer, make sure that there's no mold in the attic, make sure that, all these kind of fundamentals, roof's not leaking. But if you just get a decent enough place and you get the ball rolling, that's really all that matters. We'll probably look back on today some point. I'm not sure if it'll be recent or at least, 10 or 15 years. And we'll look back like, wow, real estate prices were really that low. At some point in the future, that's going to happen. Start, because it's never going to get easier. Even if we have some kind of a crash, that just means that the financing market's squeezed. So you're not going to have the access to capital that we have now. So there's always a problem. That was what everyone had an issue with, 10 years ago. They couldn't borrow money to buy the deals. The point is, build a foundation now, build a relationship now, get people to trust you now, so that when those times do come, you have the access to capital, you have the access to the people that trust you, whatever that is, you have the track record to go out there and buy those deals. Because trust me, the oldest story in the book is people saying they didn't have capital, from 2010 to 2015 when all those deals are out there. So start now. It's, prices might go down, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easier.
Man, hit it out the park with that one for sure. I couldn't agree more with all of these points that you're hitting on, because you hear it all the time. Oh, I'm going to wait for prices to go down. I'm going to wait for the crash. But like you just said, if you don't have a track record, why is someone gonna loan you $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 for a rental property that you're not even going to be living in when you haven't done anything or have a track record? So, yeah. That's huge. And like you said, you've been able to build this in 8 years of, solid work on a good foundation. And here you are. So we like to talk about financial freedom here.
Sure.
That's why we're all doing this. We love real estate. We love the challenge of building businesses and everything else. But the point is to, someday be financially free. So, if you wouldn't mind sharing, you don't have to share specific numbers or anything like that you're not comfortable with.
Sure.
But, let's say you said you had 14 different properties with a mixture of, single families, some small multifamilies, 1 or 2 commercial buildings, and your a storage rental. So with all that you've been able to build in 8 years of hard work, can you give us an idea of maybe what that's worth, what the cash flow is, just, round numbers for the people out there?
Sure. So yeah, what I left out of that story to get here is, we did sort of attain financial freedom. And I do love that this show focuses around it. I was working third shift for the majority of that. I was working another job. I was working my tail off all day. I basically didn't sleep. And we had, my wife and I had that vision of leaving that job, and we did that to reach that. So yeah, what the portfolio is worth, I don't know. definitely, a couple million, some probably about 2.5 million, is total what we own right now. So nothing crazy, but, we've been able to, buy a decent amount of real estate, and, some of those we own cash, some of those we have land contracts on, some of those we have traditional financing on, a lot of those we have private financing. So, like I said, if you build a track record, and people trust you, and you have a level of character, and you can have some people to corroborate a story, about you, there is a lot of capital. And, trust me, for, 5 of those years, certainly, the 8 we talked about, I would not have believed myself. But I did believe in the, if you build a foundation, good things will happen. And so, so you might not believe me either, people listening, but trust me, if you build that foundation, money will come. There are an enormous amount of people out there trying to allocate their money, and trying to find good people like you. Be that person, become that person. Go find somebody, if I were telling people, don't go try to find the best real estate person, that has a millions there, go and find the best practitioner that's in the, in the real estate right now. And, you can go whatever kind of skill you have. Maybe you're good at cleaning houses, right? Like, go clean their flips or whatever it is, and provide that service. And, trust me, you'll learn an enormous amount, from that.
That's great. That's great. So when did you guys actually become financially free?
Probably, it's a good question. I guess, probably in 2017, 2018, if we looked at strictly when real estate started paying all of our expenses, back then. So, and then, that term can mean a lot of different things, but yeah.
Well, that's where I was going to go. So, I'm glad you chimed in there, because
sure.
So originally, financial freedom was having your, business or real estate pay
Sure.
for all your expenses.
Sure.
So sitting where you're at today,
Sure.
what does financial independence mean to you?
To me, it's changed a lot. I used to look at financial independence and think, one day I'll quit my job and, sit around, maybe, or some kind of form of that, and that it'll pay for things. And, I'm a thoroughbred. Like, I love what I do. I could never imagine myself, going and retiring in a retirement town, on a beach somewhere. Like, I love doing this. So to me, financial freedom means that, it allows me the freedom of choice to do exactly what we want to do. It's allowed me to leave that, a very good job, a job that, at least in my area, is, perceived as the most coveted, company you could work for, and all of that. But it's allowed me to see beyond that, right? Like, back when I was younger, I could never see beyond that. And I thought that it was a big pipe dream that I could get out, before 30. And, and I did it well before 30. So like, I guess it's progressively changed what that term means to me. My wife and I do a lot now in the community. So a lot of the funds that we make, we put back into things that really matter. So, it's really changed, because it's changed a lot more from money focused to now, like, okay, how can we do some really cool things over the next 20 or 30 or 50 years, and not have it matter about, money or just acquisition and all that. And, the one that I will touch on is my favorite. We bought this house. We're almost done with it. It's, sort of a burr. But it's the worst house I've ever been to. It's in a really good area, but, in my area, probably a B area. But, it was the most disgusting place I've ever been into. And I've been into some, in the kind of the D class areas. So it was honestly disturbing. And, it really kind of, I guess, pissed me off just walking through it, just seeing how people could, anyway, they had 7 kids living in it. It was a small house. There was 13 dead animals inside the house. 2 of the kids were living in the attic, like an actual attic. I walked in there, I probably had 1,000 fleas on me within seconds, bed bugs. I mean, just honestly, just the most disgusting place that, you could ever, imagine. And so everyone kind of laughed at me for buying it, because you should just burn that thing down, man. They had meth fires in the attic, and just pretty much everything that could go wrong with it did, whatever. So, but we bought it because we, just from my past, I wanted to, women that go through abuse and things like that, it's always been on my heart. And one of the things with COVID is most landlords have been selling off their portfolio, right? Their properties are worth a tremendous amount of money. So it's really difficult for renters in general, but also these programs, to find quality single family houses for these women. And so we saw this place. We saw it as a place that we could resurrect and do something really good with. So we're at the end now, and we're passing it off to them, so that, sometimes these women need short stays, to get out of situations, to go, wherever they're going to go. Sometimes they need longer stays, but we're going to give it to this program. It's going to be theirs, so that no matter how short or long, they will have a dedicated place. It's a really good place in a good remote area. So those kind of things are what financial freedom means to me now. It's like, now we get to go do some really, really cool things that I never would have. In the past, it would have meant like, okay, I can make X amount of dollars on that property. But now we look at it a lot different. Like, we can really improve an area, help people out, feel really good about it, and just hopefully provide a little bit of joy to people that, are going through a time that I wouldn't wish on anyone. So honestly, those are the kind of things that I look towards is financial freedom. For myself, it's about being able to do a lot more cool things like that. And because I want to do it for 50 years, and I don't really have any more aspirations to necessarily go kick it on a beach. Although we do, we love the Virgin Islands. We love going out there, but this is, our focus, and that's what really brings us true, that's what financial freedom means to us.
Yeah, man, I love it. I absolutely love it, because, I think a lot of people would end up doing the same things, feeling like, all right, but you have to take care of yourself first, and have
100%.
Those bills paid, and 100%. Kind of have that nest egg and that cushion. And then once it's there, when you don't have anything, you dream about having millions and millions of dollars, and not doing anything, because you have to go to work every day.
Sure.
If you don't go, you don't get paid. And then once you build the solid foundation, like you said, where your bills are paid, you have these properties that are mostly self-sufficient, then you have this time back, you're like, all right, well, I need to be doing something more significant with my time. What better than help the community that has given me everything that I have now?
For sure.
And that's huge. That's one of the things that we're talking about doing is in our area. A lot of the properties that are, HUD homes are that they need are mainly for single mothers.
Sure.
And a lot of those properties and people that are doing that are just old tenants that don't have good properties. And a lot of these, like you said, these women and these people, those are the only places that are accepting those vouchers. So that's all they can really get. Sure. So, this next property that we're buying, our goal is to design the property, make the property, fix up the property specifically for a HUD in the area, in hopes that it will go to people just like that.
Sure.
And that's mainly our tenants. Majority of all of our tenants are single mothers with one or two kids.
Sure.
So, I mean, I love that. I love that so much. And that's exactly what we're looking forward to doing,
Sure.
more in the future as well. It's because once you have the ability to,
Yeah. And it's such a, it builds on itself, like we have within our construction company, I mean, that's a really tough industry. For those that, I mean, of course, everyone complains about contractors, but also don't want to pay the good ones. Right. So it's always that, but we have some people that work within our organization that really should own their own companies, but being able to get yourself, so like, I guess financial freedom, like, and getting yourself to that foundational level and being able to then pour into other people's lives. Like people work for us that should have very successful construction companies because they just love the, the atmosphere and the things that we do, things like that. It's more than money, I mean, of course they're getting paid, and that's why they show up. Right. And we pay them well. Like I said, I genuinely have this idea that the next 50 years, the greatest commodity is going to be labor. It's so tough in the labor market. I don't know. I really don't know any flipper locally that's able to do multiple flips that does not have an in-house crew. That's the new kind of, that's a challenge because and that's a whole nother topic. But like for our company within flipping properties, that's why I started that, is because you're relying on everyone else's timelines. You get a good, you have a good electrician, they're out 3-4, or more weeks. You have a good plumber, they're out, and now all of a sudden you're fitting all this in, you got year-long projects. And so anyways, if you build that foundation, you can do some really cool things and really change other people's lives, which is honestly the best feeling.
Yeah. I think real estate investors and guys like ourselves, even gals like ourselves, kind of get a bad rap sometimes, that it's all about the money. I mean, literally, I'm sure you're well aware, but there are Facebook and Instagram and website pages out there dedicated to hating landlords, to hating real estate investors, because of a select few, and it just gets blanketed on all of the good ones. And every single person that we've talked to on this podcast, and I've talked to personally, that invest in real estate, is doing it for a greater reason than just money, and it's always nice to hear what people's plans are once they have reached that financial freedom, have become financially independent. And majority of the time, it's not relaxing on a beach. It's not playing golf all day. It's not going on vacations. It's continuing to do the business, but with wider aspirations and bigger dreams, because we all do this for the passion. Yeah, the money's great. The time freedom is even better, but it's the challenge. It's the passion. If you didn't have that inside of you, you would have gave up after that first deal, but you knew that that's something that you wanted to do in the challenge. And here you are today. So I really love that. Now, so with that in mind, what obstacle do you see yourself facing? Besides labor, because we know that's the big one, what obstacle do you see yourself facing to be able to reach that goal and expand it even more over the next 3 years?
Yeah. Personally, it'd be becoming the leader that I need to become. It's a really difficult, it's much more difficult than I had anticipated, transitioning from being somebody that, is a producer, or somebody that is able to really do things in hands-on, whether it's flipping, I have multiple different kind of ventures that I've done, and I've poured my, whole kind of life into, and then stepping back and being able to be a great leader to help other people succeed in those similar roles. So personally, that is my greatest challenge. It's a role that I really want to be good at. It's a role that I want to genuinely, help people. And it's a role that I have to wake up every day and get better at. It's something that I don't know that you ever get really good at. But man, it's a gift, to be able to do that for people, and that people put their trust in you. But it's also such a great responsibility, and it can be challenging. So and personally, that is definitely, the difficulty, the one that, is probably in a business standpoint is taking the next step. Like I am very, adamant about building foundations, and so a lot of people ask, and how come you haven't bought, taken down some bigger apartment complexes and things like that. And definitely something that I want to do. What I've witnessed a lot of people personally do is go into something too soon without a solid foundation, and there's each I work with a lot of people buy, apartment complexes. There's a lot of intricacies, a lot of moving parts. And with me starting the construction side of things, man, it's difficult to build a culture within a construction organization. And, and so that's kind of my next hurdle, is kind of going into some bigger stuff. I mean, we've done some, media, some commercial stuff and things like that, but kind of getting into the larger commercial space, it's definitely something that we're going to do sooner rather than later. We have, quite a few investors that have been trying to push us into that space for some time, but, probably later this year, we'll really start to dive deep into, larger stuff. So that's those are my two hurdles right now that I face.
Great. Now, larger apartments. That's something
Sure.
that I'm actively looking at getting into.
Sure.
And I really want to stress what you said, because there's so many people out there right now. I'm not going to name any names, but there's so many people out there pushing people to just go from zero experience into a 20 or 50 unit apartment building. Like, hey, you can find the money, you can find the property manager, you can find the contractor, skip all the steps and go straight there. And I think you're exactly right. Like, that is how you get burned. That is how you are risking a ton of people's money, family, friends, all that, because those are the people that are initially going to invest with you.
Sure.
That you're going to go out and try to get. So, that's such a huge point. You have to have a track record. You have to have the foundation.
Sure.
But with these larger apartment deals, I'm interested. What would be your strategy on, one, finding them, and then two, financing them?
So I already service, I find some, and I sell to some of the guys that I know take on bigger ones. So I've been involved with a few of them. So I do actually, I communicate daily with, I don't know, daily, weekly, certainly, with owners of complexes, whether, in just kind of my greater area, maybe a hour to 2 hour radius around me. So definitely hunting them down. My younger brother actually leads that kind of task force for us. So we wholesale a good amount in our area, or we do list some of them, but generally it's wholesale, matching up big time investors with good deals off market. So we do a lot of that already.
Is that through dialing? Is that through text message, postcards?
Yeah. Mostly dialing and just building rapport with people locally. I rub elbows with people all the time, and who should I know? Just kind of build a reputation of somebody that does what they say they do. That's one of the challenges that a lot of newer people get themselves into, is it's tough and it's hesitant, but if you build a reputation of somebody that doesn't close, that gets around real quick. So, if you build a reputation as a closer and somebody that moves things, gets things done, people start to talk. And so we've kind of developed that over the years. And, right now we have a 10 unit that we're wholesaling, and, kind of pairing up a couple of investors that want it. And so that's kind of what that looks like now.
So you're right now, you're really looking for the right deal for you.
No, it's the right timing. No. I mean, even if the right deal came right now, it's not the right time. Like we got a lot of work to do within, organizations like, we have meetings every day with everyone within my organization, the kind of the leaders of it. And, one of their things that they're constantly on me, hey, what do you think? I heard this is affecting the market. You think it'll hit, like the war? And, they're always, my position has always been that it doesn't matter, that we'll be able to pivot. If the real estate housing market, falls out and interest rates shoot up, what are we going to do? To me, we're going to pivot directly to rentals. We're already in it. We have enough niche to it. We'll just continue to buy rentals. That's our gravy. I didn't mention, but I buy land. And so we're building, and so we're building rentals. And so, single family rentals. And so that's something that I'd probably double down on, because I do all that with private money, and DSCR loans. So, because I have those relationships now, it doesn't really matter what's going on around me. They'll trust in us to do that. So it's more timing. Like, it's getting the construction side of it. If I'm going to buy a multifamily, it's going to be a significant value add, not just probably rehabbing it. It's probably going to be potentially building, like if they have additional land to build on, it's already zoned, to take a 50 unit to 100 unit, something in the realm of that. That's probably, what we'll take down. But we have a lot of, it's tough, and the biggest thing is it's tough to keep a good reputation.
Yep.
And so we make enough mistakes as a construction company to make me leery to go put our name on the line on something big. So I like to, if we're going to make mistakes, I like to make mistakes on my dime. If we're going to make mistakes with people's millions of dollars, I'm not willing to do that. So we have the money, we have the people that, every day, some of these guys, hey, listen, man, like, let's go take down this one. They'll send me stuff. And I'm like, I'm not ready, man. I'm not ready. Like, we gotta get really, really, really good on the construction side. And then, we'll probably go, do some kind of value add outside of just rehabbing a few units is probably what we'll do. And there have been a couple that kind of intrigued me enough to pause before before we wholesaled it. But, it's just not the right time.
Hey, one of the best parts about that is that it. So, I mean, that's huge. That really shows the type of person that you are, the type of business that you're trying to have, the type of name that you're trying to have out there, because that answer right there proves that your entire thought process is long-term. It's long-term in your community and in your market. And
it's delayed gratification.
Your business. Yeah. Delayed gratification. Yeah. That's 100%.
It's tough. It's tough, but man, like I've witnessed so many people lose their reputation. Just way too many, lose their reputation trying to get too big too quick, and locally, and could be limiting beliefs, I suppose, too. But man, I want to be here in 50 years. That's really my only goal in life, beyond. I mean, I have a kid now, and so I have a lot of personal goals, with my wife and all that. But man, like my biggest goal. And I was actually, it's funny. I love to run on rabbit holes, but I met with somebody yesterday. He's done quite a bit in his life, and he's retired now. So he hobby flips. And so he called me and wants me to list his house and whatever. And so we just basically just chatted there for like 2 hours, and he talked about everything, but, the house that he wants me to sell. And, he had worked for General Motors for a long time, owned a bar, owned 50 rentals, whatever. And they bought a bunch of commercial stuff, all this kind of stuff. And we were just talking about a lot of this, and he was talking about all the stories of all these people over the years that he met, and they did a couple, flips or a couple of rentals, and all of a sudden they wanted to go do something big, and they didn't have the ability to delay their gratification. And so they tried to extract too quickly from these big projects, and so anyways, I mean, that's my goal. My goal is to be here in 50 years and have a great reputation, the best reputation possible. And so that's something on my mind every day.
Perfect answer. You are dropping some serious nuggets for everybody out there to know that this is a long-term play. And I mean, if we revert back to your story, you even said in the beginning that like the first 5 years, you felt like it just wasn't happening. It's so slow. The grind is so slow, especially when you're burying these properties. I mean, you're buying them. You can't even refinance for 6 months to a year sometimes. Then by the time you get those funds, you have to start buying again. So to get that snowball rolling, it takes a lot of time. But then I'm sure from, you said from year 5, to year 6, 7, 8, like the floodgates open, and it just started really making progress. So, man, I think we have really come to a great part in the podcast where we kind of break it down, and we do the big 3 is what we like to call it, where we're going to ask you 3 questions to try to help people out, get to know you that last little bit before we sign off here. So the first one we like to call the FI hack. So what is something that you feel is kind of like a cheat code to achieving financial independence?
House hacking is something we talked about. I think that's definitely one of them. I mean, I guess, the two things that got me here 100%, where when I was younger, I guess I didn't talk about this part of the story either, but if anyone out there is anything like me, growing up in a relatively small town, the dudes had trucks and toys and all that kind of stuff, right? And so everyone I knew had that kind of stuff. And so when I was younger, I bought a few trucks. I had, fifth wheel and snowmobile, right? All these kind of things that everyone else had. And at some point, and I honestly don't remember what that point was anymore, but I looked up and I just saw people that were 30 and 40 and still doing that same thing. And I'm like, man, that can't be the life. Like, I don't want to go down that trajectory. So I don't honestly remember why, but I remember I used to like collect vehicles. I was flipping vehicles back when I was younger. And I sold, everything, on a dime. I sold everything and I bought the cheapest Chevy Cobalt I could buy. And I drove that thing into the ground. Right. And so like the hack was no car payment, no house payment, with house hacking and car payment. And I think if you combine those two things and you look at like the average American spends, I don't know what the statistic is anymore, but somewhere between 50 to 60%, I think, just on housing and cars. Like that was the house that got the hack that got me here. Those two things, and trust me, like you get on the other side of it and you can do what it is. I got a new truck now and those sorts of things. We still do house hack, by the way, with a kid and stuff. We, although my wife is very adamant that we change that pretty soon, but
oh man. So I wish I would have convinced my wife to do that earlier. Because I'd probably have, another 16, 20 units at this point, but I could never do that. So touche on you, man. I'm sure that time is drastically running out though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we also kind of did a little bit of a luxury duplex house hack. So, we got space. She enjoys it. She is getting that like motherly instinct and wanting to like grow her roots with the kids and stuff, like with the family home. And so I can appreciate that. But like the moral of the story is like, if you do that for a few years, or it can even be just a year or two, right? You don't have to set a timeline on it. But like I did that, probably, how long did I have that car for, man? Maybe 3 years, whatever. I'm not sure, 3-4 years or whatever. But that car was the symbol of, me getting out. I had this position, within the same company that car was made by. And like people would laugh at me like, dude, you make this amount of money and you drive that beater, a Cobalt or whatever. But I never remember, like, I always remember that. And I use it as fuel. Like, man, if I can last this, like, I'll get there. And I kept telling myself that, and even when I even small story, I convinced my mom to let me drive her car to my first date with my wife, because I was like, I can't show up in this Cobalt, but it was just like that Cobalt like meant so much to me, because it was kind of like the epitome of me getting to that financial freedom, and so those two hacks would be what I would say was what got me here.
That's right. The ultimate flex is what's in your bank account, not what you're driving in or riding.
For sure.
So boom. Love it. All right. So this one we call resources. So are there any books, podcast, people that really shaped your, financial independence journey, your outlook on life, that is not Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Sure. Man, I'll shout out Chad Carson from Bigger Pockets is honestly the person that probably that everyone would know is the person that, shaped me the most. I'm not sure when this episode will air, but right now, his course is open. If there was any course, and I mean this genuinely, that I would ever recommend, it would be that course. I think he's the most genuine person in real estate, period. I think he has the greatest, his slogan is do what matters. And that's kind of, that's his slogan for his company, for everything talked about in the course. And he also talks a lot about like, he's like anti getting big. He's more about like, let's go small. That's his slogan is, go small. Like, so whether it is somebody wants to, do the cash, cash only or grow a big portfolio. It doesn't really matter. The models and the systems and the things he talks about in that course, I just think are so genuine. His book is Retire Early with Real Estate. It was the book that hit me at the right time. He's the only author I ever emailed. And from there, like if anyone does go into that course, I'm one of the teacher assistants. I don't get paid or anything for promoting the course, so I don't want people to think I'm just promoting it. But I'll be there. Yeah, I'll be there talking about house hacking or flipping, I think is. But at any rate, both of them. So we'll get to do some one-on-one stuff. I really think the course is phenomenal. But even if you don't do the course, the book, Retire Early with Real Estate, I think is the best real estate book out there. And Chad Carson wrote it. And, if anyone cares to listen, he's been on House Hacking Success a few times. His episode just dropped recently as well. And one of the things that him and I talk about a lot, him and I both played college football, is the takeaways we take from football that allowed us to fail and continue to get up. And we talked a little bit about, one second. I'll be right back.
You're good.
Sorry about that.
Oh man, you're good. I understand. Things happen.
But yeah, I mean, he just really, we talk a lot about kind of our takeaways from football and how we relate it to it, how the failures that we had in real estate, we were able to say, just get up for another down, get up for another down. A lot of the things that we talk about, delayed gratification, we'll practice 9 months to play for, maybe 9 games in a 2 or 3 month period, right? Like all those instilled delayed gratifications, and not that people have to play sports or have to relating to that. Like if you can take those core fundamentals of sports, delayed gratification, putting in the work before when no one's watching, all those sorts of things. So if anyone wants to listen to that podcast or his podcast, what is his podcast called? Anyways, Chad Carson, you'll be able to find it. But honestly, he's I think the most genuine person in real estate.
Perfect. I'm going to be checking him out. I'm sure. I mean, I've listened to almost all the bigger pockets, but the name's not ringing a bell. So I'm going to go and check him out on Instagram right after this. Because
Coach Carson, I think is his handle.
Coach Carson. I mean, that's a glowing review on my book. So I'm definitely going to go scope it out. So, okay. Last one. So I know we kind of touched on this a little bit, but we're 5 years into the future. What excites you the most about either your real estate business, your brokerage, your construction business, or being a leader? Like just 5 years into the future, you're looking into it. What excites you the most?
Developing, I think, is what really what we have our sights on. Like I said, we're starting to do some build to rent stuff and things like that. And so it's kind of our precursor to potentially building at scale, whether that's commercial or apartments or single family. I'm not entirely sure. But I've been working with some people that have a lot more knowledge than I do at developing and things like that. And that really excites me in the personal space, or in a business, real estate business sense, I suppose. Personally, man, I'm really excited to see my kid grow up, get into, she's rolling around now. She'll be a year old here in, this coming month. And so, seeing her walk and talk and teaching her some things, I'm really looking forward to that on a personal level. And then, yeah, I mean, we really are leaning into, being a part of this community. And so doing some cool things like we did with, the women's battery program, and some of those sorts of things that really excites me as well. So,
man, Brad, want to say it's been a absolute great hour chatting it up with you. I feel like we probably could have went another 2 or 3 with all the different things. We only scratched the surface on here. I know I've enjoyed this conversation a ton. I look forward to doing it again. I mean, you provided so much value. to everyone. I've learned a lot. I've got some things I got to check out. So for everyone out there who wants to get in touch with you, I know you've got a couple Instagram pages, a bunch of other stuff going on. What's the best way for people to reach out and learn about what you're doing and how to get in touch with you?
Yeah. So, househackingsuccess.com and House Hacking Success on Instagram, Facebook. If you want to check out and kind of learn more about that, you can DM us on there. My partner, Drew, runs the majority of that. Shout out to Drew Klingler. If you want to look him up, people out there as well to talk about house hacking stuff. But Bradley LaBrie is it's my handle, soldbylabrie.com. If anyone, wanted to get involved with Michigan investing of some sort, no matter what that looks like, I could put you in touch with the right people, because, we do have a pretty solid market, and depending on what your comfortability is, but for returns, and so if you want turnkey investing, things like that, I don't provide it, but I do have, some connections to make, and some, people that do use those companies that you can talk to, things like that. I've put a lot of people from, I work with a lot of people from coastal cities, that, have a lot of money and want to pour it into, our area. So if that, that excites you too, you can reach me there.
And it sounds like you need to get a syndication together down the road.
One day.
One day. All right, guys. Well, thank you again for listening. Make sure to give us a follow on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, Google, all that good stuff. Leave a review, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Real FI podcast, where you learn from the investors that have lived the hard lessons for you. To connect with us during your pursuit of financial independence, be sure to join our community by following us on Instagram or emailing us at info@therealfi.com. If this content made you financially, mentally, physically, or spiritually richer, please make sure to leave us a positive review on your preferred content platform. Cheers to kicking the 9 to 5.